You really want to know about the Utilidors and the backstage secrets? Well, here's a not safe for magic response to some of the questions I was asked about them, as well as a special little bonus surprise at the end. So I recently shot a video looking at the Disney Utilidors under Magic Kingdom in Florida, trying to give some detail and information about how they look, what's there, how they work, what it's like to be in them, and things like that. And I had some great questions that I received from a number of viewers that want to go into more detail about them. Sure, why not? But I want to give you a heads up. There's a number of these questions that are asked that are going to be not safe for magic. So if you're wanting to preserve all of the magic at Disney and keep everything intact, this might not be the video for you. But I am actually going to answer a couple questions and go behind the scenes in a way that I very rarely do to answer a couple of the questions. Oh, and I also got a very special gift in the mail too that I missed on my live stream, so I'll show that at the very end too, because what I got is amazing. So the very first question I received is from Jack Decker. He's actually got 3 questions here. He says, is it true that when guests are given tours of the Utilidors, cast members have to put their costume fully on? So if the guy who plays Mickey was in it, he would have to put on his Mickey head. If the actress for Princess Aurora isn't naturally a blonde, she has to put on her blonde wig. Is there also something that lets Disney workers know guests are coming through, such as a flashing red light or something? Generally, with the characters, they leave their costumes in their dressing rooms. They don't normally go walking around backstage areas with the costumes on. Sometimes, rarely, but especially in the case of furs, man, they want to get out of those things as soon as they can. They don't even travel from the wardrobes to the dressing room areas in costume. They actually carry the costumes on carts and in bags so people can't see them. In fact, there's a good chance that you may have been walking around Epcot and Studios and you might have even been passed by a character and not had a clue that you were. So no, they're not walking around backstage in costume, so you generally don't have to worry about that. But if you are taking the backstage tour, such as the Keys to the Kingdom tour, they warn you at the beginning of the tour and before you go into the Utilidors that there is a chance you may see something that would break the magic, that you may see somebody whose costume isn't perfect and in pieces, or you'll watch them coming off stage and you'll see the big that's part of the deal with the tours. Hey, you're going backstage, they kind of jokingly dub you as an honorary cast member, you're going to see reality, so be prepared for that. That is part of the tour. So nope, no warnings. If a character comes down the hall partially in costume, they're going to be partially in costume. They're not changing for anybody in the Utilidors at that point. Interesting note, the princesses, if they do go to lunch and stuff, if they're staying backstage, will often keep the wigs on. They don't usually take the wigs off because it's kind of a pain to get them on. Sometimes they do, depending upon which role they're doing. So you may see a princess in the break room with her hair up, and you'll know she's a princess by that, but she's not wearing the dress and stuff while she's eating. Not going to take a chance of dripping food on your dress. Johan M. asks, I'm curious about how much chat and talks you have backstage or down in areas like the Utilidors between CMs and CMs from other areas. Are there like beware lists or wonderful guest lists floating around there? Sorry, Johan, don't mean to kind of dash your hopes. No, there is no list like that. Because again, there's so many cast members and there's literally tens of thousands of guests every day. A slow day at Magic Kingdom would have 20,000 guests in the park. You don't generally get to know guests that well. You may get to know a small handful of regulars if you are working full-time and you're consistently in similar places, but you usually don't at Disney just because there's so many people. For the same reason, because there's so many employees, you generally did not mix in departments. If you were to go down to the Main Street break room, there's a number of large round tables there that seat like 8 people each, and you can see the photo pass table, you would see the entertainment table, you would see the shopkeeper's table, you would see the custodial table, the attractions tables for their rides, and people generally kind of stayed in their group because that's who they worked with, that's who they saw on a regular basis. So Disney did not really see very much mingling of departments. It's not that they weren't willing or able, it was just you wanted to hang around people that you saw more frequently, and you could see a cast member one day and you would never see them again, even if you were both working full-time. just because there's so many there. So generally the social groups kind of hung around in their own little cloister with their own ride, their own stores or shopping area, their own department. So no, not a whole lot of socialization like that. And the only place you might see a list would actually be in a couple of the security rooms. There actually is a little guest room up just off of the entrance to the park there in front of the train station. That's really the security and the gate attendants break room. And that's where, the people who are letting people in the park work. There are a couple things up in there that kind of let them know what to look for, but that's not in the rest of the park. It's only up front. Are the characters CMs swapping around between characters and areas as much as other members seem to do? For example, could Belle from Magic Kingdom one night be friends with the same CM as Snow White and Epcot the next? Again, this wasn't really my department, but I did know a number who were friends with the characters. And yes, you could be friends with a character on one day and friends with a completely different character in a different park on the next day. It was not unusual for character performers to be friends with several different characters, depending upon heights, depending upon appearance, depending upon abilities. It would fluctuate and change. You would have some that would only be one, and you'd have some that could be 3 or 4. And depending upon what the needs were in the parks, they could rotate around or switch. They may work a shift that all they are is just that one character consistently. Or if they're what would be called backup, they would have to be ready to do several characters, depending upon if somebody called in sick or they needed something. So it could definitely fluctuate and float around a little bit. It would depend upon the employee. Richard Meredith asks, I remember seeing Michael Jackson briefly in the park when he was shuffled off by handlers through the door. I imagine the Utilidors are used a lot for famous people visiting. Yes, there were times in the Utilidors where I didn't meet people, but I did cross paths a couple times with Miley Cyrus when she was there. Rather, her entourage was on one side, and I knew about it because I was on the other. I know Joan Rivers was down there at one point. I'm sure Michael Jackson used it. Basically, the rule was you didn't want to bring celebrities down in the Utilidors, but if they were going to be up in the park, you didn't want to create a commotion and a crowd-stopping scene and stuff up there. So in a case like that, they may bring him down and then move him through the park, especially if they were doing any sort of commercial taping or TV shows and stuff. Then they would definitely use the Utilidors to move equipment, to move people, to move stagehands and background entertainers and things like that. That would all go through the Utilidors. And yes, it was much easier to bring him up on the castle stage from down in the Utilidors than it was to try to do it through the park. So yes and no. They were used sometimes depending upon who it was and what kind of crowd reaction it could cause. Rachel D. So how come you can hear horses going by above, referring to the Main Street break room? I thought they were soundproofed underground. The reason you can hear the horses up above you if you're sitting in the Main Street break room, which literally is right under the middle of Main Street. If you've got the tracks, it's right below it. The reason that you hear the horses is because they are pulling 2-ton trolleys. And these horses are huge. They're big, huge draft horses. So even though it is fully insulated, cemented, overlaid with dirt, it's solid, and then more cement on top. When you take that kind of a weight and you're going thump, 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 it's going to make noise down below. It's not real loud. You're not hearing this. It's more like kind of in the background, and if it's quiet in there, you can hear it. So it's not a distracting thing, but you can hear them just a little bit overhead, just because of the weight and the impact they're making. Barry H. asks, are the Utilidors handicapped accessible? In some places, yes. The main entrance, what you call kind of the cave or the tunnel, where the shuttles drop off, that is fully open, and it's just basically a ramp. That's actually open enough so they can actually drive the armored cars in. So they can actually drive trucks in there. So yes, it is completely wheelchair accessible through that. There's pergos or carts that run all the way around. So the whole level in that regard is completely wheelchair accessible. Where it gets a little iffy is some of the access points up above. There are elevators in some locations, but not near every stairway. So there are some stairways that you're not going to be able to get up if you're in a chair or if you need help moving around. But there are others that right around the corner from the stairway is an elevator. In particular, near some of the kitchen areas, there is one I can think of right offhand over in Adventureland that actually had 2 stairways right by it, and there's an elevator right in the middle to a backstage area. So you can kind of access both that way. So yes, they are generally handicapped accessible. If you are doing the tours, though, be aware they may want to use a stairway, and it's a lot of walking anyways if you want to do Keys to the Kingdom. So the tour itself is accessible, but it's not easy. Jose Daniel Quezada asks, weird question. Did you ever go up to the elevator that leads to the tip of the castle where Tinkerbell launches? And if you went up, was it small or big? Since the higher it is, the smaller it is because of the forced perspective. I have never been in the elevator. I have heard stories of it. I know where the elevator was because at the time, PhotoPass actually had a picture printing station underneath the castle, and it was where we print pictures for people who were eating at Cinderella's royal table. We used a stairway to go back and forth between that and the restaurant. But the elevator was right around the corner. There's actually 2 different elevators there, if I remember right, and I might be wrong on this. But there was one elevator that kind of went from where we were at up into the restaurant. I think it might be the one that goes to the Cinderella suite. Maybe. But it was a decent sized elevator. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't tiny either. The elevator that goes up to where Tinkerbell is, if I remember right, is smaller. I believe it's just big enough for like 3 people to stand in it, and that's about it. Yeah, it's not a real big thing, and I don't know a whole lot about it because, again, I haven't been in it. I was just kind of told, yeah, that's Tink's spot, and that's, oh, okay, that's cool. But I was working, and so it wasn't one of those deals where I could walk over and go, oh, ooh, let's check this out. And it would have looked a little weird to do it in off hours. That was kind of a, this is a need to know. If you need to be there, you can be there, but if you don't really need to be there, you probably shouldn't, kind of a thing. So I have a general idea where it was, and that's about it. And then somebody asks, hello, I want to go on the tour when I can, but I wonder if it ruins the magic, or if you can see something strange like carts or cars and something that you don't even want to see. If you're thinking about the Keys to the Kingdom tour and you're worried about ruining the magic, simple answer, don't take it. For many of us, it actually enhances the magic because you can see how it works. You see behind the scenes, you see what really goes on. Oh my goodness, this is amazing what they are doing and how they do it. For me, it's fascinating. I absolutely love it, and it makes the magic even more. For example, when I got to see some of how the Haunted Mansion works, and then you look at what everybody sees, and then you see how it works, and it's like, that is so cool! But for other people, it ruins it. When you can see what's happening and how they're getting ready, then it's just not quite the same. You see that in particular with the characters. You see what the characters doing to get ready, and then you look at them on stage, and you're going, yeah, but I know. See, for me, there's a transformation point that once they put on certain parts of the costume, boom, it's a massive change. So I'm like a kid when I see a character in the park. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. So it really depends upon the person. But if you're worried about it, I'd say skip the tour. Again, from Jack Decker, he says, for the cast members who interact with children, does Disney do a background check to make sure they're not convicted pedophiles? Okay, not Utilidor, but this is actually a really good question because you hear this a lot, that Disney's full of them. Wah! Every single Disney cast member who interacts with the public gets a full background check. They are checked their criminal history and any other jobs and stuff like that. Disney is extremely careful about who they put out there working with the public. Now, when you've got 70,000 plus cast members, employees, you are going to rarely have one that slips through. Think of a city of 70,000. It happens. But it's extremely rare. So kids are safe at Disney, at least as far as the cast members go. They don't background check all the guests, so that's a whole nother deal. But so I hope you enjoyed that. If you got more questions, definitely post them below. I would love to answer them. I do want to give a huge shout out to John Cadle. He sent me a package that missed my live stream by 2 days, which I wish I'd had it, because when I opened it today, it was like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. The first thing he did was he sent me this package of brochures. But I want to pull out a couple things from this, and then I want to show you the big thing he sent me. There are a couple of amazing pins in here. If you are a pilot, you will recognize those. And oh my goodness, those are amazing pins. He's got some great brochures here, but then he sent me something that he handmade. And I just got to show this because this is amazing. Yes, that is Figment in stained glass. And, oh my, it is absolutely amazing. So that's the back side of it. Let me show you the clear side. Is that not cool? I absolutely love this. It's definitely going up in our window. Yeah. So, John, now you can see. I'm in awe. I am absolutely in awe. So thank you for that. Let me know what you think. Hey, tell John what an amazing job he did. Let me hear your comments and questions below. Don't forget to check the description. There's a ton of info there. And a huge shout out as well to my YouTube members and my patrons for their financial support. If you want to know more about those, be sure to check the links in the description below or at the end of the video. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless. Well, here's a not safe for magic look at, and giving a more detailed look at them, and oh my gosh, thank you, stupid computer. And giving you a more detailed look at, blah. But if you are taking the backstage tour, such as the Kings for the Kingdom, Kings for the Kingdom? Yeah. Ginger, stop! My dog's over there crawling all over the beanbag chair. Just get up there. Ding-a-ling. I imagine the Utilidors were used a lot for famous people. People. Yeah, famous people. But if they were going to be up in the upstage, that's so open they can actually drive the tank trucks. Not tank trucks. Oh my goodness. Do the genders of the yeah, lots of bloopers in this one. If you'd like to know about my merchandise, contact information, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of my videos, hit that button right there to subscribe. And if you want to see another one, well, I've got a great video for you right here. If you'd like to be like these wonderful people here too and support me financially on Patreon or YouTube, well, hit that little button right there. It'll even give you behind the scenes access and more perks. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless.